Matt from Jackers Brewing Co. Now I know you might be thinking, man, what is all this stuff all over this table in front of you? Well, today we're talking about bottling. So one of the best ways to be able to collect bottles for homebrewing is, and it doesn't even matter if you're starting out or you just need to kind of replenish your stock, is commercial pop top bottles. Now, I'm normally a proponent of supporting your local homebrew store, which I don't think that you shouldn't. You should continue to buy a couple cases at a time of bottles if you're bottling, especially if you're bottling frequently like I am. But there's nothing wrong with reusing commercial pop top style bottles. So I generally kind of make sure that, one, it's a beer that I'm gonna like to drink or that I want to try, and then I try to save those bottles. Having said that, some of those bottles aren't worth saving or aren't worth my time, at least, in chasing that bottle. Generally those are kind of like more like the laser printed type labels or whatever. You can just tell like they're like super high quality, but I guess they got this like super adhesive like peel and stick type backing to them. They're pretty difficult and challenging, in my opinion, to be able to do. If I personally can't put it in the sink and let it soak for like 15 minutes in hot soapy water, then it's not worth it to me to be able to spend any more time or effort trying to get that bottle clean enough to reuse. So this video is pretty much like a breakout video from the Beginner Brewer series, the Beginner Brewer video, Extract Brewing. I covered a lot of stuff in that. I know it got kind of long, and so I wanted to kind of make a shorter video directly about bottling. So there was also a conversation that I had with another YouTuber about bottling, and they said that they hate bottling. I told them that I pretty much don't mind bottling. It's a task that I normally do once the kids go to sleep around here. It's kind of a little bit of like me time. I get to throw on some music and just kind of space out and do that repetitive kind of job, a little bit like Zen moment. And it's a task that I can accomplish alone, and I can get it knocked out generally within about an hour or so. I do let the kids help me from time to time on some really easy, simple tasks like sanitization or whatever, but we'll get into all that here in just a moment. So the first thing to do with bottling, in my opinion, is clean them and put them up, and put them up clean. You know, get those labels off, get them scrubbed down if that's what you need to do. If there's some home brewers or if there's some homebrew exchanges going on and it's you got a lot of sediment in the bottom of that bottle that you can't get out or whatever, just make sure you get all that clean. Generally I just do dish liquid soap and a bottle brush, do a couple passes through there with the bottle brush, and then go ahead and rinse it out, shake it up, rinse it out, you know, once or twice. Just make sure that you try to get all that gunk and stuff out. Soak and pull those or peel those labels off. There are some bottles that kind of have like this plastic wrap on there. I still soak those just so that way once I take my razor blade and I cut off that wrap and get it off of there, it's already hot soapy water, and then I can just run a sponge or something around it just to make sure that if there's anything that was caught between that label and that glass, I can go ahead and get that cleaned off. So in the beginner video, I talked about how I originally used the drying rack to be able to get some of the bottles clean once I cleaned them or once I sanitized them. it was kind of a pain in the butt or a chore to do it. But you know, if you're trying to get into home brewing and you're trying to do it kind of as cheap as possible, just to see, one, if it's something that'll take, or you know, you want to spend some money elsewhere, you know, a drying rack for dishes isn't necessarily the worst idea. But I've moved to the bottling tree. I find that thing, man, it makes cleaning bottles so much easier. It makes sanitization of those bottles so much easier. You either run them through there, or you know, once you've cleaned them and kind of let them drip dry, and then you can go and put them in the cases and then put those things up. Or sanitization, you know, you run them through the sanitizer or whatever, and then you can put them on that bottling tree and let those things kind of get most of that stuff out. Depending on what sanitization method you're using, that may not be an option. I know there's some that are no rinse solutions, such as Star Sand, and then there's a few other different types that you do have to make sure to get cleaned out. So on bottling day, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and get the priming sugar going, and as far as that goes, you know, if it's a kit, just follow their directions. If you're not doing a kit and you're coming up with your own recipe, there's some priming calculators out there. I'm trying to switch to that. I feel like I've been let down a little bit on some of those things, and so I think what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start taking a combination of 3 or 4 of them and just kind of averaging them out, and do some test batches with that and see if I'm happy with the way that those things are leading me. A few beers have come over carbed, some of them have come under carbed, and so I'm just trying to figure that out for myself. After the priming sugar comes or after the water comes to a boil, I go ahead and add the sugar, and then I let it cool down. I kind of do like the no-chill method more or less with it for just a little bit, and then I end up sticking it in the refrigerator. You know, just use your caution if you're moving a hot pan on a hot stove. Make sure that it cools down for a little bit if you're going to end up putting it in the refrigerator. Also, on bottling day, don't get into a rush with priming sugar. You want to make sure that stuff has ample time to come down to a decent temperature before you use it. You don't want it to start killing the yeast on the beer that you end up putting in there. So just use some caution. So for sanitizing bottles, again, I use the bottling tree, and then I have like a little reservoir that has like a pump, and you give it a couple pumps, it shoots sanitizer up into the bottle, and then I like to let it drain back into that reservoir for a little bit, just a second or two, and then hang it on the tree, and then let that kind of drip dry, or run some of it out anyways on bottling day. By the time that I've spent time, and you know, I'll give it a little bit with the priming sugar in the fridge, but after I've spent some time sanitizing all my bottles, sanitizing my fermenter, kind of letting some of that foam and the water and all that stuff kind of run out for a little bit, and it's about time to kind of start moving on into the bottling phase. So make sure that your bottling bucket, your auto siphon, or whatever you're using to be able to siphon the beer out of the fermenter is decently sanitized. And so, you know, start that suction or that siphon, and then as you're pulling the beer out of the fermenter into the bottling bucket, one, make sure that bottling bucket valve is closed. You do not want to start pouring all that beer all over the floor. Not necessarily for the mess sake, but you've put a lot of time and a lot of effort and some money into that beer, so you might as well make sure that you're gonna have as much as possible. Also, you want to make sure that your stir paddle and bottling wand is clean. I used to never use the bottling wand. I always just put my beer up to the valve, opened it up slowly, and let it fill up the bottle. But it looks like that the bottling wand kind of does a little bit better of a process that I found out during the Basic Brewers video that I put together. So I'm going to start using that thing throughout the rest of my brewing career, at least for bottling anyways. Because I want to start out entering more and more competitions, and it's just one of those things. It's one less way to introduce oxygen into my beer, so I'm going to start doing that. So with everything sanitized, and once that priming sugar has been able to come down in temperature to a more or less room temperature, you want to take that priming sugar, go ahead and put it in your sanitized bottling bucket. And then I take my sanitized stir paddle, and I mix it up nice and easily and slowly. I don't want to add a whole lot of air to this thing. You have to be very, very, very slow in movements and caution in movements and things like that, because at this point you can add a lot of oxygen to the beer, and you really don't want to do that. Granted, some styles, a little bit of oxidation can maybe add some beneficial notes or some characteristics to it, but you don't want to do that. You just want to make sure that you're eliminating as many variables as possible with oxidation, and so just use some caution with this. I like to, and I read it a while back ago, and it kind of makes sense, and I've seen a lot better even performance and even carbonation across the beers since doing this. But waiting about 15 minutes after you've added the priming sugar and you've gently given it a stir in that beer, so that way that mixture that you've made for the priming sugar has time to incorporate into the beer. Within that 15-minute mark, I try to spend some time making sure that things like the priming sugar pan are clean. My auto siphon, once I've used that it's clean and put up, out of the way, drip drying, whatever the case may be. Same with that stir paddle. I just try to make sure that I clean up as I go, especially on bottling day, because there's a lot going on, and so there is some downtime, so you might as well try to make sure that you use that time wisely, because after you get done bottling this beer, it's just nice to just chill out, especially if it's towards the end of the day or end of the night. Go ahead, take that extra effort, get some of that stuff cleaned up. So once you've racked that beer over, you let it set. It's time to bottle. I try to move through this as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, but still as cautious as possible. I like to go ahead and knock out about 6 or 9 bottles at a time. As I'm putting the bottles up there, I'll maybe let 1 or 2 go, and then I'll try to get those caps on the bottle. Just lay them over there, so that way you try to keep anything out of those bottles as possible. We could argue about another point of oxygen coming in, but at some point in time you've got to go with what you're comfortable with. So I go ahead, and after I get about 6 to 9 of those bottles with the caps laying on them, then I'll start going ahead and capping them. It doesn't matter if you're using the two-handed type bottler here or capper here, or the bench type that I have here. In action, I like to make sure that both mechanisms have gone down and crimped the bottle cap 3 times. Maybe it's a little bit of OCD, seems to work as of right now. I haven't really had too many failures outside of actual bottles. I've broke 1 bottle with the double-handed deal. Maybe it was a defective glass. I think maybe I got a little overzealous, or I think maybe I got a little overconfident while I was using it, and I busted it by putting too much pressure on it. I haven't done it with the bench capper here. I don't know if that's necessarily because it's easier to use or whatever. I imagine it can be done. So you want to make sure that it's crimped down in a decent fashion, but you don't want to go overboard on it. As far as bottle selections and stuff like that go, the sky's the limit. I have some Trappist ale type bottles that say Trappist on it or whatever, so I like to use those for special things. Some of like the Boulevard bottles, the Smokestack series, those are also I bottle like special beers in those. One year I bottled Rogan beer. One year I bottled a stout in them. So like I said, I try to make sure that those are kind of like the more different beers, maybe the things that I'm going to put up or age for a little bit, or just have for a special occasion. You know, those flip type bottles, I use those once or twice before now in some beers. That beginner brewer series, that I used one in there, and that worked out really well. I haven't used any of those PET type bottles, the plastic ones yet, for beer, not because they seem sketchy or anything like that to me. It's just I've seen some people say that they've had success to them, but I don't really have any laying around that I want to use for that. All those things have pretty much been used for root beer and stuff for family and the kids and whatnot. So with everything said and done, you know, bottles all come in different shapes, sizes, and whatnot. You just have to be aware of the cap size. There's some European ones that take some different caps. I think you need to make sure from time to time that you look at the bottles on there, keep up with some bottle maintenance. If you see any that have any chips around the sealing areas, that is a point of risk for infections or leaking carbonation. I've tried to reuse some of those Guinness bottles before. Haven't really had too much success with those. I did kind of like a rye Irish stout in those, and it was kind of hit or miss. I don't know, maybe if there was some imperfections in those bottles. I didn't really look at them too well. I just know that I had saved a few because they were kind of cool bottles, so I wanted to see you know, what they could do. But with everything said, you know, thanks so much for coming by, dropping by, and checking us out. Be sure to leave a like. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We've got some pretty interesting content coming out here before too much longer. I think a lot of it's going to be exciting, especially to maybe even some newcomers. Some of those people that have been hanging around here, maybe some of the stuff coming up, maybe we'll be able to exchange some ideas on and learn some more stuff from each other. With all that being said, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it. Bye.